What if an alien warrior vowed to kill you, only to realize you were the one person who could save her world? Meet Jake, a 30-year-old farmer whose quiet life was shattered when Zara, a fierce alien warrior with glowing violet eyes and shimmering silver hair, tried to end his life. But when she discovered the truth about who he really was, everything changed. This is the story of an ordinary man thrust into an extraordinary destiny, a galactic prophecy, and a battle that will decide the fate of the universe. But beware, this isn't just a story about survival. It's about what happens when two enemies become allies, and the stars align for a greater purpose. Story begins as, the first time I saw her, she was trying to kill me. I was out in the woods behind my house, just minding my own business when I heard it, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. It wasn't the kind of sound you'd expect to hear in the quiet woods of rural Ohio. It was deep, menacing, and entirely unnatural. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest, and slowly turned around. And there she was, a towering alien warrior, her silver armor gleaming in the moonlight, her eyes glowing like twin suns. She had a blade in her hand, its edge shimmering with an eerie, otherworldly light. And she was staring right at me. Human, she snarled, her voice deep and menacing, like the growl of a predator. You will die tonight. I didn't even have time to scream before she lunged at me. I ducked just in time, her blade slicing through the air where my head had been seconds before. The sound of the blade cutting through the air was sharp and terrifying, like a whip cracking inches from my ear. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest, and took off running. Branches whipped at my face, and my lungs burned as I sprinted through the woods, but I didn't dare stop. Behind me, I could hear her footsteps, heavy and relentless, closing in. Run all you want, human, she called after me, her voice dripping with malice. You cannot escape me. I didn't know who she was or why she wanted me dead, but one thing was clear. I was in serious trouble. My mind raced as I ran, trying to make sense of what was happening. Aliens weren't supposed to be real. They were supposed to be in movies and books, not hiding in the woods behind my house, trying to kill me. But there she was, real as anything, and she was gaining on me. I stumbled over a root and nearly fell, but I managed to keep my footing. My legs were starting to give out, and my breath came in ragged gasps. I didn't know how much longer I could keep running. I glanced over my shoulder and saw her, her glowing eyes locked onto me, her blade raised and ready to strike. She was close, too close. And then, just as I thought it was over, I tripped. My foot caught on a rock, and I went sprawling, hitting the ground hard. I rolled onto my back, my chest heaving, and saw her standing over me, her blade raised high. Her glowing eyes burned with hatred, and for a moment I thought that was it. This was how I was going to die. In the woods behind my house, killed by an alien warrior I didn't even know. But then, something strange happened. She hesitated. Her blade didn't come down. Instead, she stared at me, her glowing eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. Confusion? Recognition? I didn't know. But for a moment, she just stood there, frozen. Who are you? She demanded, her voice sharp and demanding. I blinked, my mind racing. I'm Jake, I stammered, my voice shaking. Jake Carter. She frowned, her glowing eyes narrowing. Jake Carter, she repeated, as if testing the name. Then, without another word, she lowered her blade and turned away, disappearing into the shadows as quickly as she had appeared. I lay there for a long time, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. What had just happened? Who was she? And why'd she let me go? I didn't know it then, but that moment was just the beginning. The beginning of something much bigger and much stranger than I could have ever imagined. And as I lay there in the dirt, staring up at the stars, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to change forever. The woods were quiet again, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. But the peace was deceptive. Something was coming, something big, and I had a feeling I was right in the middle of it. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mind was racing, replaying the encounter over and over again. The alien warrior, her glowing eyes, the way she had hesitated before disappearing into the shadows. It didn't make sense. Why had she let me go? And more importantly, why had she been trying to kill me in the first place? The next morning, I was exhausted, but I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for her to come back. I had to figure out what was going on. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with a few essentials, and headed back into the woods. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a golden glow over the trees, but the beauty of the morning was lost on me. My nerves were on edge, and every sound made me jump. I retraced my steps from the night before, following the path I had taken when I was running for my life. The woods were quiet, almost eerily so, and the only sound was the crunch of leaves under my feet. I kept my eyes peeled, scanning the trees for any sign of the alien warrior, but there was nothing, just the quiet, peaceful woods. And then I saw it, a glint of silver, barely visible in the underbrush. I crouched down, my heart pounding, and reached out to brush away the leaves. It was a piece of metal, smooth and cool to the touch, with strange symbols etched into its surface. It looked like it had come from her armor. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. The symbols were unlike anything I'd ever seen, intricate and flowing, almost like a language. I didn't know what they meant, but I had a feeling they were important. Looking for something? The voice came from behind me, and I nearly dropped the piece of metal in surprise. I spun around, my heart racing, and saw a man standing there. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. He was wearing a strange, futuristic suit, and in his hand, he held a weapon that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. "Ooh, who are you?" I stammered, taking a step back. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied me, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. "You're Jake Carter," he said finally, his voice calm but commanding. I nodded, my throat dry. "Yeah, how do you know my name?" The man's expression didn't change. "I've been looking for you, Jake. My name is Kale, and you're in more danger than you realize." I frowned, my mind racing. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Kale glanced around, as if making sure we were alone, then stepped closer. "The warrior you encountered last night, her name is Zara. She's part of a faction that believes humans are a threat to the galaxy. They've been sent here to eliminate you." My stomach dropped. "Me? Why me?" Kale hesitated, his expression grim. "Because you're not just a human, Jake. You're something else." I stared at him, my mind spinning. "What do you mean, something else?" Kale took a deep breath, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. "You're the key to an ancient prophecy. A prophecy that foretells the rise of a human who will unite the galaxy and bring peace to all species. Zara's faction believes that if they kill you, they can prevent that from happening." I blinked, trying to process what he was saying. "That's insane. I'm just a guy. A regular guy. I'm not some galactic savior." Kale's expression softened. "You may not believe it, Jake, but it's true. And now that Zara knows who you are, she won't stop until you're dead." I swallowed hard, my stomach churning. "So what do we do?" Kale straightened up, his expression resolute. "We protect you, and we prove to Zara and the rest of the galaxy that you're not a threat. That you're the key to peace, not destruction." I nodded, though my mind was still spinning. "Okay, but how do we do that?" Kale's lips curved into a small, determined smile. "We start by showing them who you really are." The hidden bunker was like something out of sci-fi movie. The walls were smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with a soft, blue light. Panels of alien symbols flickered across screens, and the air hummed with a low, steady vibration. It felt alive, like the ship itself was breathing. I sat down on a sleek, metallic chair, my mind still reeling from everything that had happened. "Start talking," I said, my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at my chest. "Who are you? Why was that alien trying to kill me? And why do you care?" Kale leaned against the console, his arms crossed. His expression was calm, but there was a sharpness in his eyes that made it clear he wasn't someone to mess with. "Zara is a warrior from a distant planet," he began, his voice steady. "She's part of a faction that believes humans are a threat to the galaxy. She was sent here to eliminate you." I blinked, confused. "Me? Why me? I'm just a guy. I deliver pizzas for a living. I'm not exactly galaxy-threatening material." Kale hesitated, his expression grim. He stepped closer, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. Because you're not just a human, Jake. You're something else. I frowned, my heart pounding. What do you mean, something else? Kale took a deep breath, as if weighing his words carefully. You're the key to an ancient prophecy. A prophecy that foretells the rise of a human who will unite the galaxy and bring peace to all species. Zara's faction believes that if they kill you, they can prevent that from happening. I stared at him, my mind racing. That's insane. I'm just a guy. A regular guy. I'm not some galactic savior. Kale's expression softened, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Hope, maybe? You may not believe it, Jake, but it's true. And now that Zara knows who you are, she won't stop until you're dead. I swallowed hard, my stomach churning. So what do we do? Kale straightened up, his expression resolute. We protect you, and we prove to Zara and the rest of the galaxy that you're not a threat. That you're the key to peace, not destruction. I nodded, though my mind was still spinning. Okay, but how do we do that? Kale's lips curved into a small, determined smile. We start by showing them who you really are. The next few days were a blur. Kale trained me, teaching me how to defend myself and how to use the strange, futuristic weapons in the bunker. I was clumsy at first, fumbling with the sleek, alien devices that felt like they belonged in a video game. But Kale was patient, his calm demeanor helping me focus. Keep your stance steady, he instructed, adjusting my grip on a glowing energy weapon. You're not just holding a tool, Jake. You're channeling energy. Focus. I nodded, trying to mimic his movements. The weapon hummed in my hands, its light pulsing faintly. This feels weird, like it's alive or something. Kale smirked. It is in a way. These weapons are tied to the user's energy. The more you connect with it, the stronger it becomes. I raised an eyebrow. So what? I just think really hard. He chuckled, a rare sound that caught me off guard. Something like that. But it's not just about thinking. It's about believing. You have to trust yourself, Jake. That's the first step. Trusting myself wasn't exactly my strong suit, but I tried. With each passing day, I grew more confident, more in tune with the strange technology. Still, the thought of facing Zara again filled me with dread. She was fast, strong, and utterly relentless. How was I supposed to stand up to someone like that? One night, as we were preparing for what Kale called the final confrontation, I asked him the question that had been weighing on my mind. Why do you believe in me, Kale? Why do you think I'm this savior? Kale hesitated, his expression thoughtful. He set down the weapon he'd been cleaning and turned to face me. Because I've seen what you're capable of, Jake. Even if you don't see it yet, I do. You have a strength inside you, a light. It's something I haven't seen in a long time. And I know that if anyone can unite the galaxy, it's you. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely convinced. I hope you're right. Kale placed a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm but reassuring. I am. And when the time comes, you'll see it too. The next morning, we set out to find Zara. Kale led me to a remote, rocky area where Zara was waiting. She stood tall and imposing, her blade gleaming in the sunlight. Her glowing eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I thought she might attack. But then Kale stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Zara, this ends now. Jake is not your enemy. He's the key to peace. Zara snarled, her grip tightening on her blade. You're wrong, Kale. This human is a threat, and I will eliminate him. Before Kale could respond, I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Zara, wait. I'm not your enemy. I don't want to fight you. She glared at me, her glowing eyes filled with hatred. You don't get a choice, human. And then she lunged at me. The moment Zara lunged at me, time seemed to slow. Her blade gleamed in the sunlight, its edge shimmering with an otherworldly light. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't freeze. Kale's training kicked in, and I sidestepped just in time, her blade slicing through the air where I had been standing. The force of her swing sent a gust of wind past my face, and I stumbled back, my hands instinctively raising the energy weapon Kale had given me. You're fast, Zara said, her voice cold and mocking. But speed won't save you, human. I didn't respond. My focus was entirely on her, on the way she moved, fluid and precise, like a predator stalking its prey. She circled me, Her glowing eyes locked onto mine, her blade held low and ready. I tightened my grip on the weapon, its hum growing louder as if responding to my fear. Kale stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, watching intently. He didn't intervene, and I realized this was a test. He wanted to see if I could hold my own. The thought made my stomach churn, but I pushed the fear aside. I had to prove myself, not just to Zara, but to Kale, and maybe even to myself. Zara attacked again, her blade arcing toward me in a flash of silver. I raised the energy weapon, and a burst of light shot out, deflecting her strike. The impact sent a shockwave through my arms, and I staggered back, my breath coming in short gasps. "Not bad," she said, her tone almost approving, "but you'll need more than that to stop me." She came at me again, faster this time. I barely managed to dodge, her blade grazing my shoulder. Pain shot through me, but I didn't let it slow me down. I swung the weapon, aiming for her side, but she blocked it effortlessly, her blade clashing against the energy beam with a sharp crack. "You're holding back," she said, her voice sharp. "Why? Are you afraid to hurt me?" I gritted my teeth, my frustration growing. "I don't want to fight you, Zara. I'm not your enemy." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You keep saying that, human, but words mean nothing. Show me." I hesitated, my mind racing. Kale had taught me how to use the weapon, but he'd also told me something else, something I hadn't fully understood until now. "It's not just about the weapon," he'd said. "It's about you. Your energy, your will. That's what makes it powerful." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I didn't want to hurt Zara, but I couldn't keep dodging forever. I had to show both of them, that I wasn't just some helpless human. I focused on the weapon, on the hum of energy in my hands, and let my fear and frustration fuel it. The weapon responded, its light growing brighter, its hum louder. Zara's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't back down. She lunged at me again, her blade aimed straight for my chest. This time I didn't dodge. I raised the weapon and fired. The blast of energy hit her square in the chest, sending her flying backward. She landed hard, her blade skittering out of her hand. For a moment, she didn't move, and panic shot through me. Had I hurt her? But then she sat up, her glowing eyes wide with shock. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. How did you do that?" I lowered the weapon, my hands trembling. "I don't know. I didn't want to fight you. I wanted to show you that I'm not your enemy." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked at Kale, who was still standing silently, his arms crossed. "You knew," she said, her voice accusing. "You knew he had this power." Kale nodded, his expression calm. "I did, and now you see it too." Zara turned back to me, her glowing eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Respect? Curiosity? She stood slowly, brushing the dirt off her armor. "You're different," she said finally, her voice soft. I nodded, my heart still pounding. "I am, and so are you." For a moment, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she stepped back, her blade lowering to her side. "This isn't over," she said, her voice low. "But for now, I'll let you live." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, my legs trembling beneath me. Kale stepped forward, his hand resting on my shoulder. "You did well, Jake, but this is just the beginning." I nodded, my mind still spinning. The battle with Zara had been intense, but it had also shown me something about myself, about the power I didn't even know I had. And as I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of the fight, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the start. The real challenge was still ahead. The days that followed were tense. Zara didn't attack again, but her presence loomed over us like a storm cloud. She stayed close, watching me with those glowing eyes, her expression unreadable. Kale seemed to trust her, or at least, he didn't seem worried about her trying to kill me again, but I wasn't so sure. Every time I caught her staring at me, I felt a chill run down my spine. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I found Zara sitting on a rock near the edge of the woods. She was sharpening her blade, the sound of metal against stone echoing in the quiet. I hesitated, unsure if I should approach her, but curiosity got the better of me. Mind if I join you? I asked, my voice cautious. She didn't look up, but she didn't tell me to leave either. I took that as a yes and sat down a few feet away, keeping a safe distance. For a while, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the rhythmic scraping of her blade against the stone. Finally, I broke the silence. Why do you hate humans so much? She paused, her hand stilling for a moment before she resumed sharpening the blade. I don't hate humans, she said, her voice low. I hate what they represent. Chaos. Destruction. You've seen what your kind is capable of, haven't you? I frowned, thinking about the wars, the pollution, the endless conflicts that seem to define humanity. Yeah, I guess I have. But that's not all we are. There's good in us too. She glanced at me, her glowing eyes narrowing. Good? Your good is fleeting, human. It's overshadowed by your greed, your violence. My people have watched your world for centuries. We've seen what you do to each other, to your planet. And now, you think you can unite the galaxy? You can't even unite your own kind. Her words stung, but I couldn't deny the truth in them. Maybe you're right, I said quietly. But that doesn't mean we can't change. That's what this is about, isn't it? The prophecy? It's not about who we are now. It's about who we can become. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she set her blade down and turned to face me fully. You really believe that, don't you? I nodded, my gaze steady. You do. And I think, deep down, you do too. Otherwise, you wouldn't have let me live. Her expression softened, just for a moment, before she looked away. Don't mistake hesitation for belief, human. I'll let you live because I'm not sure what you are. But if you prove to be a threat, I'm not, I said firmly. I don't want to fight you, Zura. I want to show you that we're not all bad, that we can be better. She studied me for a long moment, her glowing eyes searching mine. Then, slowly, she nodded. We'll see. The next morning, Kale gathered us together. It's time, he said, his voice serious. We need to move. Zara's faction won't wait forever. They'll come for us, and when they do, we need to be ready. Ready for what? I asked, my stomach churning. Kale's expression was grim. For war. The word hung in the air, heavy and final. I glanced at Zara, but her face was unreadable. She didn't argue, didn't protest. She just nodded, her grip tightening on her blade. We'll need allies, Kale continued. There are others out there who believe in the prophecy. If we can find them, we might stand a chance. And if we can't? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kale's gaze locked onto mine, his expression resolute. Then we fight anyway, because if we don't, the galaxy falls. I nodded, my heart pounding. The weight of what we were about to do settled over me, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. Not now. As we prepared to leave, Zara approached me, her glowing eyes filled with a quiet intensity. You're not what I expected, human, she said, her voice soft. I managed a small smile. I get that a lot. She didn't smile back, but there was something in her expression, something that looked almost like respect. Don't make me regret letting you live. I won't, I said, my voice firm. I promise. She nodded, then turned and walked away, her blade glinting in the sunlight. I watched her go, my mind racing. The road ahead was dangerous, and I had no idea what we were walking into. But one thing was certain, I wasn't alone. And as long as I had Kale and Zara by my side, I had a chance. The journey to find allies was anything but easy. Kale led us through dense forests, across vast deserts, and over towering mountains. The terrain was harsh and unforgiving, and the constant threat of Zara's faction kept us on edge. Every shadow, every sound made my heart race. But despite the danger, there was a strange sense of camaraderie between us. Zara still kept her distance, but she no longer looked at me with pure hatred. There was something else in her eyes now, curiosity, maybe even a flicker of respect. One night, as we camped under the stars, I found myself sitting by the fire with Kale. Zara was on watch, her silhouette outlined against the moonlit sky. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the ground. Do you think we'll find them? I asked, my voice quiet. The allies, I mean. Kale poked at the fire with a stick, his expression thoughtful. I don't know, but we have to try. The prophecy isn't just about you, Jake. It's about all of us. If we can unite the galaxy, we can end the cycle of violence. But it won't be easy. I nodded, my gaze fixed on the flames. What if we're not enough? What if we can't stop them? Kale looked at me, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. We have to be. There's no other option. I wanted to argue, to tell him that I wasn't cut out for this, that I was just a guy from Earth who delivered pizzas for a living. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, then we'll do whatever it takes. The next morning, we reached our destination, a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs. The air was thick with the scent of flowers, and the sound of running water filled the air. It was beautiful, almost otherworldly. This is it, Kale said, his voice low. The last stronghold of those who still believe in the prophecy. As we approached, a group of figures emerged from the shadows. They were unlike anyone I'd ever seen, tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like starlight. Their eyes glowed softly, and they moved with a fluidity that was almost hypnotic. One of them stepped forward, their voice melodic and calm. Kale, it's been a long time. Kale nodded, his expression serious. It has. But we're here now, and we need your help. The figure's gaze shifted to me, their glowing eyes studying me intently. And this is the human? The one from the prophecy? Yes, Kale said firmly. This is Jake, and he's our only hope. The figure stepped closer, their gaze never leaving mine. Do you believe in the prophecy, Jake Carter? I hesitated, my heart pounding. I don't know, but I believe in what it stands for. I believe we can be better, that we can unite the galaxy and bring peace. For a moment, the figure didn't respond. Then slowly they nodded. Very well, we will stand with you. But know this, the road ahead will be dangerous. The Corax will not give up easily. I nodded, my resolve hardening. I know, but we're ready. As the figure led us into the valley, I glanced at Zara. She was watching me, her glowing eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Respect, maybe even a flicker of hope. You've come a long way, human, she said, her voice soft. I managed a small smile. Yeah, and I'm not done yet. She didn't respond, but she didn't need to. The look in her eyes said it all. We were in this together, and no matter what happened, we would face it as a team. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, as if they were watching over us. And somewhere out there, among the endless expanse of the universe, our story was just beginning. The final battle began at dawn. The Corax had found us, their dark ships descending on the valley like a swarm of locusts. The air was thick with tension, the hum of their engines drowning out the sound of the wind. Kale, Zara, and I stood at the forefront of our small army, the allies we had gathered standing behind us. Their faces were grim but determined, their glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. This is it, Kale said, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of what was to come. We hold the line here. No matter what happens, we don't let them through. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. The energy weapon in my hands hummed softly, its light pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I glanced at Zara, who stood beside me, her blade gleaming in the early morning light. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the approaching ships, her expression unreadable. Ready, human? She asked, her voice low. I took a deep breath, tried to steady my nerves. As ready as I'll ever be. She nodded, her grip tightening on her blade. Good. Don't die. It would be inconvenient. I managed a small smile, despite the fear gnawing at my chest. I'll do my best. The first wave of Corax soldiers hit us like a tidal wave. They were fast and relentless, their weapons blazing with dark energy. I fired my weapon, the beam of light cutting through the enemy like a hot knife through butter. Zara moved like a whirlwind, her blade slicing through the Corax with precision and skill. Kale fought beside us, his movements calm and deliberate, his energy weapon cutting down anyone who got too close. But the Corax kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. For everyone we took down, two more took their place. The battle raged on, the valley filled with the sounds of clashing weapons and the cries of the wounded. My arms ached, and my breath came in ragged gasps, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. As the battle wore on, I realized something. We were losing. The Korax were too many, too strong. Our allies were falling, their glowing eyes dimming as they fell to the ground. Despair began to creep into my heart, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't give up. Not now. Jake. Kale's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and urgent. The heart. Use the heart. I froze, my mind racing. The heart of Alara. The source of the prophecy, the key to everything. Kale had told me about it, but I hadn't understood what it meant. Not until now. I reached into the pouch at my side and pulled out the small, glowing crystal. It pulsed with a soft, golden light, its warmth spreading through my hand. Zara's eyes widened as she saw it, her expression a mix of shock and realization. "That's the heart," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my grip tightening on the crystal. "It's not just a weapon. It's a part of me." I closed my eyes, focusing on the crystal, on the energy flowing through it. The world around me faded away, and for a moment, there was nothing but the light. And then, with a blinding flash, the energy exploded outward, engulfing the battlefield in a wave of golden light. When the light faded, the Korax were gone. The valley was silent, the air thick with the scent of ozone. I opened my eyes, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and saw Zara and Kale staring at me, their expressions filled with awe. "You did it," Kale said, his voice filled with quiet reverence. "You united the galaxy." I shook my head, my heart heavy but determined. "No, we did it. Together." Zara stepped forward, her glowing eyes filled with something I couldn't quite place. Respect, maybe even a flicker of hope. "You were right, human. You're not a threat. You're something else." I managed a small smile, despite the exhaustion weighing me down. "I am, and so are you." As the sun rose over the valley, casting its golden light over the battlefield, I knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and now it was up to us to show them what we were capable of. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.